All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are live. We are underway here now as we are able to kind of get through and check out what went down in this game. Wild game for K State. Man, just incredible the way that the game ended up playing out. And honestly, I don't have many words for it. The way that it ended up going down, really impressive in a couple of ways to me about how things went down for K State. Number one, the fact that Marquise Noel put together that performance in general is pretty insane. And in addition to that, he did it with a bum ankle that was very concerning in the moment. Obviously, anybody that has done anything where they've sprained their ankle, they know how in the moment just how painful and scary it kind of is because you don't really know for sure what's taking place. And for him to just get off, get it taped, and go out there and not really change the way he played in the game. He was still just as dominant and still as important to the game as he was prior to the ankle sprain. Just a really impressive night for him. And you can go through social media and see just how many people are going off now about Marquise Noel and how impressive that was. They just showed on the TBS post game Trae Young, Kevin Durant, Muggsy Bogues, like a bunch of big time basketball players are giving their shout outs and love to Marquise Noel after tonight's performance, where he ends up 20 points, 19 assists. The 19 assists are an NCAA tournament record. And a good note now from KSU_fan on Twitter. He keeps track of all this stuff throughout the year. With those assist totals, Marquise Noel is now third all time in Big 12 for Big 12 players in single season assists. The only guy that is better than him is Doug Gottlieb, who did it twice. And so the impressive thing about all that is not just the fact that they're at 285, but it's more so that like Gottlieb was really only a passer. He was not a scorer. Marquise Noel is scoring the basketball at such an elite level, and he is also able to dish it out. So really impressive by Marquise Noel. Little reset for you. I'm Mason Voth, managing editor of EMA Online. We'll be going live here this evening for who knows how long. It'll be a reflection, a celebration, whatever you want to call it tonight between myself and then Gabe Swartz, who also contributes for us. He'll be hopping on anytime now. He needed a little bit more of a cool down period after the game, I guess. So he'll be hopping on here very soon. And then be sure to be locked into the website over at EMA Online, because Alec Bussey, boots on the ground in New York City, was at Madison Square Garden tonight. He'll have plenty of coverage there. One of the things that I would encourage you to go check out on the site right now is going to be the story that he wrote earlier today. He did all this in one day, and it was incredible what he was able to turn out. But he went and met up with Marquise Noel's brother and dad, and they went around a bunch of the old courts that Marquise Noel played on when he was growing up in New York City, and kind of went through the journey that led Marquise Noel to the point of where he is now: 20 points, 19 assists, and taking K-State to the Elite Eight for the first time since 2018, and took overtime. It's not the most fun thing if you're sitting at home, and K-State now, let's see, that's two of the last three Elite Eights they've gone to has needed an extra period or two in the case of 2010. Fortunately, it was just one extra 5-minute period tonight, and K-State was able to get the stop they needed. That was really the biggest issue in the crunch time, the closing moments of the regulation and overtime. K-State wasn't able to get the stop following the big play that they had made. And that was really the scary part going into that final possession there for K-State, and you didn't know what was going to happen. And, of course, who other than Marquise Noel was there to make that play at the very end. So really impressive what they were able to do there right now. So we'll have a little bit more coming up here in just a moment. Gabe will be joining us. Just some final tallies and figures from the game that should stand out to everybody. K-State wins at 98-93. They end up with two guys scoring 20 points in the game. That's Keontae Johnson and Marquise Noel. And the other kicker for the Wildcats is they end up with 6 players in double figures tonight. Johnson, Noel, Masood, Gasson, Tomlin, and Cam Carter. Every guy had a bucket that was big time that they absolutely needed to convert, that also maybe they wouldn't have done in other games this season. Just the way that this thing played out, K-State matched Michigan State, who is a better shot-making team. Just looking at three-point numbers, K-State is a little above 30%. Michigan State was north of 40% entering tonight's game. Both teams kind of went blow for blow with each other. K-State was 46% from three, 11 of 24, and Michigan State was 52%, 13 of 25. The Wildcats were also able to withstand the free throw line in this game. K-State wasn't great at it, 11 of 16, that's 69%. Michigan State was good at it, 82%, and they shot a few more than K-State. They were 18 of 22 at the free throw line. So K-State was able to make enough plays to get themselves over the hump and move on to the Elite Eight, where they will now face either Tennessee or Florida Atlantic. That game is getting ready to come off right now. So that'll be going on TBS next, and we'll see what ends up coming out of it. But should be exciting to follow along with the remaining games tonight. It's probably a good thing for the NCAA that K-State and Michigan State delivered the way it did, because it looks like Arkansas-UConn was a snooze fest. UConn just blew Arkansas out of the water. That's got to ruffle some Jayhawk feathers sitting at home watching the team they lost to in the second round get pummeled the way that they are. But the game on CBS coming up after that one will be really good. Gonzaga, UCLA, a little rematch of the 2021 Final Four game that got played in Indianapolis. So we'll keep our eyes on that. A couple of things that I want to note from the game before Gabe hops in here, just to kind of take a look around at some of the things that stood out to me throughout the point of the game. I like early on in the game, K-State got some of the right looks that they wanted. They just had some of the wrong players end up taking them. They did get a couple shots poured in that they normally don't get. You got Desi Sills, David Gasson, and Cam Carter all made some significant threes in the game. You're normally not going to get that out of this K-State team. So K-State was fortunate there, but then there was a little lull where Desi Sills took another three that you didn't really like. Naquan Tomlin took a couple that I'm okay with Naquan Tomlin and Desi Sills taking threes at the right time. They didn't seem like the right time. They were a little bit more forced. They were a little bit more guarded than what they normally are. So I didn't like that. But K-State settled in and eventually found their rhythm, and they just realized that they were going to be able to kind of pick and roll Michigan State to death. The Spartans were really, really concerned about Marquise Noel. They brought a lot of doubles his way. They did a lot of big-time things to try and take him out of it, and he made him pay with his passing. And then when he got the shots that he needed, he was able to knock them down. And I think one of the other things it's probably won't get overlooked, because I think a lot of people are aware of it in K-State circles, but the fact that David Gasson, Naquan Tomlin, whoever it was, cutting to the basket or in the lane, caught the basketball tonight is such a big, big deal, because they've struggled with that at times. And obviously the last couple of years, totally different players, but K-State didn't have many bigs that were catching the ball and able to just go up and score. We saw that a lot with David Gasson tonight. So, I mean, there's just, you can't say anything bad about the way really anybody for K-State played tonight, because this is the other thing. I mean, K-State was impressive from a turnover perspective against Kentucky. They only turned the ball over 8 times. Meanwhile, they turned the Blue Wildcats over 16 times. In tonight's game, Michigan State turns it over 13 times, which is not bad at all, considering the amount of possessions that were in this game, how high scoring it was. You go to the extra frame, like all of that, it makes total sense. K-State only had 5 turnovers tonight, 2 from Marquise Noel, 2 from Keontae Johnson, and 1 from Bebe Igiola in the 1 minute of action he saw. So for K-State, they turned the ball over on only 7% of their possessions tonight, which for a team that has had some very high turnover games at various points this year, that is kind of amazing that it worked out the way it did, and even more impressive in a game like that for K-State to be able to only turn the ball over 7% of the time. We now welcome in Gabe Schwartz, ready to join me here on EMA Online as we continue with our live post-game reaction. Cats, Spartans. I mean, Kentucky K-State was a phenomenal game, and I think you could have found some people that said, man, that's the game of the tournament. There are other games that were going to surpass that. This one legitimately might be able to live up to that, because not only did it go to overtime, but it wasn't like an ugly overtime game. It was just 2 teams that went blow for blow, and it was low turnover. I mean, total of 18 turnovers in the game. So altogether, very impressive. Some opening thoughts from you, Gabe.
Wow. That's my opening thought, is that game had so many no oh my goodness, he hit that again. And like it was
Yes.
every time it felt like it was Ish Masood, or it was Cam Carter hitting a big three. Cam Carter 2 for 3 from 3. I will
Yeah.
just say, hand up, my bad, Mason. I texted at, I think it was 77, 73. And I said, I called this on the pod yesterday. I literally said K-State is so due for you make everything and you cannot lose that kind of game. They're due for one of those games. And then they did it, but Michigan State did it too. And so it all ends up kind of evening out, I guess. But man, I mean, it absolutely feels like prisoner of the moment stuff, but I don't even know if it is prisoner of the moment stuff. But like, show me a better tournament performance in any game ever than what Marquise Noel just did, because he dominated that game on one ankle. I mean, if you're going to rain on the parade, the demerit as the guy who's writing the player grades for tonight, is I would just say that the fact that he rolled his ankle meant that when he was on defense, every once in a while he was just like, I'm not chasing that guy. And it would just lead to a wide open three. But nobody's counting at the end when you wind up with 2019 and 5 steals, including the strip for the win.
Yeah.
Just incredible stuff. And I will say, we know ball. I think yesterday's pod was about spot on of what it was going to look like X's and O's wise, and it kind of followed suit.
Yeah, if I go and look at the preview and pick and how we kind of put this thing together, final score wise, like it was tracking. I thought, hey, I look pretty good. Like I had a pretty high scoring game for these two teams. I had 77-71, and we just blew that out of the water with the way that the game ended up working out tonight. Kind of crazy to me the way that it ultimately ends up going down, but. Yeah, I mean, K-State was due for a game like that. I guess on the flip side, Michigan State was due for a game like that over their last 3. They're a team that shoots 40%, and they had shot like 21% from 3, something of that nature. And so they really got that thing flipped around. And, I mean, just impressive the way that the whole game played. I talked about the turnovers a lot because, I mean, Marquise going 20 and 19, that's impressive enough. You add in the 5 steals, including the clincher with those active hands. But the fact that he only had 2 turnovers in a game like that, he passed the ball at such a high level tonight. And the other thing that can't be overlooked, and I already said this, but I'll repeat it with you, is like guys were actually catching the basketball tonight for him. The fact that David Gasson and Naquan Tomlin and whoever else was just so firm in the way that they were able to grab the basketball and turn around and go up. I mean, just absolutely impressive and gotta have it type stuff for the Wildcats. A couple of other things. I mean, Keontae Johnson, it feels like he kind of disappeared there in the final minutes or, late in the game when maybe you need a Keontae bucket. Part of that, Marquise Noel, the other thing that you could be a little bit critical of is like he wanted that moment and he wanted to drive the knife into Tom Izzo's heart with a deep 3.
A step back.
Neither of like the 3 went his way. So Keontae was kind of taken out of it because of the way K-State was playing, but you end up looking at the end of the day, 22 points, 10 of 18, and then Keontae Johnson ends up being the second highest rebounder for K-State in the game. So Keontae, even if you're sitting at home and you're feeling like, that wasn't like a great Keontae game, he was really, really good still, and it helped propel K-State. Yeah, I mean, he was awesome. You just got a great performance. Keontae also, he played all 45 minutes of the game. Didn't get a single break for Keontae Johnson, which is A, very heroic, B, very concerning considering you're going to have to turn around and play again in, who knows how long, 36 hours or something, maybe a little bit more than that. So we'll have to monitor
it's going to be
that.
the early game on Saturday because you're going to get UConn against either Gonzaga or UCLA, and that's and it's in Vegas, so that's absolutely going to be the last game of the night on Saturday. But man, I just keep looking at the box score and I'm like, holy cow, that happened! Holy cow, that happened! And I don't know. I'm seeing rumors on Twitter, or not rumors, just people saying that Tom Izzo was called K-State's performance lucky. Tom.
Yeah.
Newsflash, there's nothing lucky about getting beat 1 billion times on back cuts. a billion times.
Yes.
Like, what are we talking about? What live your truth, buddy. Live your truth. But if that's your truth, I'm just gonna say there's a little bit of falsity to it.
Yeah, no, that I was not able to hear his TV interview and how it went with Allie LaForce after the game because I had the TV on mute. But I got some messages, including one from a source that I very much trust, a very smart man, Chris Nelson, who has graced this site in the past. He sent a message and just said, let's find it here. He said, really Izzo question mark, used to like him no more. And then talked about how this was the follow-up text. After shooting 52% from three and 82% from the line, Izzo said they didn't play very well and they really didn't have it tonight, and basically blamed the loss on K-State making 2 lucky threes. So newsflash, Tommy, your team was better at the free throw line, the 3-point line, like in a lot of these areas in K-State. The difference is in a 45-minute game with all of those possessions, you were only able to force 5 turnovers. And like you said, like you got back cut to death. Like the
just
reason
ball watching, all they did, I mean, you know what? I don't blame them. You know what? We all wanted a ticket to the Marquise Noel show, and in case the Michigan State dudes were first in line to watch it. So of course they wanted to see what he was doing with the ball.
Well, when Keontae Johnson is tying the game in overtime with a lob and a reverse finish, like that's something you got to kind of admire. So let that go. Yeah. Look, I've been an anti-Izzo guy from the get-go. Like I've never been on Izzo. I feel like I'm a pretty good character guy. Like I can pick up rather quickly. I've never liked Izzo. Like I think that's just what he does. Now, given that's what a lot of the legends of the game do. Like they're able to spin that sucker to either they got lucky, never would we have done something wrong to lose that game, or on the opposite end, like you just go straight good guy mode, like Coach K going into the other team's locker room, like, and that was a hell of a performance by you guys. You guys were so good. I mean, I just kudos to you for playing so well. I feel like that was a pretty good Coach K for never having done it before.
And then he hits, and then what K would do, what K would do at the end of this. Marquise, you're too good of a player to lay that thing up at the end.
Yes.
Salt in the wound. I just wish it would have been 20 and 20. That would have been special.
Yes. Well, yes, that would have been great. He got a lot of love from all over Twitter from everybody tonight, which is to be assumed. So yeah, K-State ends up putting together a great performance. And this is the other thing on like those Izzo comments. Like, not every time that somebody loses a basketball game is it because the other team was luckier than you, or you played poorly or whatever. Like that was just a great basketball game that somebody had to lose. And at the end of the day, going back to what Jerome Tang said on Sunday afternoon in Greensboro, that pissed off a bunch of Kentucky people. He'll probably say it again tonight and piss off a bunch of Michigan State people. K-State had more dudes today than Michigan State. Michigan State had dudes make plays, but at the end of the day, you look around like Michigan State, early on, it was Hauser. Hauser was a killer early on. I mean, come on. It's basketball. If there is a white guy on the floor, you better know what he's going to do. It's going to shoot the three, and K-State let him rip him early. But then he kind of cooled off, but then A.J. Hoggard took over, and those two guys were really special. But the fact that K-State was able to get the performance they did out of guys like Ish Massoud and, even David Gasson to some extent. Like David Gasson scoring tonight, he had a great game against Kentucky, but that was without scoring the basketball. He did all that and scored the ball tonight. That was impressive. Naquan Tomlin was good. Cam Carter was great. So K-State really did just outdo Michigan State today. Michigan State had 5 guys in double figures. K-State had 6, and that's the story of the game. K-State didn't get lucky. Michigan State didn't play poorly. K-State was just the better team today. They made enough of the final plays. And if you're Izzo and you want to talk about a team getting lucky, Michigan State trailed for over 27 minutes of the game today. The other 9 minutes, it was tied. So they only led the game for like a little under 9 minutes. And they got the opportunity to tie the game and kind of prolong that thing. Like, if you want to talk about luck, Mr. Izzo, your team was the one that was fortunate there. Desi Sills was fouled out for the last 12 minutes of the game, whatever it was. Like, K-State was without their third best player for a third of the game, and you couldn't do anything. So that's not K-State getting lucky. That's just them being the better team.
Yeah, Desi Sills got absolutely jobbed tonight. And I said to you guys, to you and Alec, over text, as soon as he fouled out, I was like, if that's Desi's last game, that's one of those things where it's like you're gonna live the rest of your life thinking like,
yeah,
your memory is going to be etched of the three names of the three officials, because those guys just straight up yanked a playing opportunity away from you in that situation, completely. So, I mean,
yeah, that was that's a game right there where, like, revisionist history, you go, man, that was just an awesome game. That was a great game to be a part of, like, if you're on the K-State side. But if you had lost that, like, you'd have much different feelings. And that's, living through that 13 years after the Xavier game and that Sweet 16, like, you go and you kind of forget over all those years, like, man, that was a crazy game, like everything that went with it. But you don't think to yourself, like, oh man, that would have sucked if you're Xavier. And you kind of forget all the feelings and the way that game played out, like, in the moment. And that all comes back then today, and you get to see all that play out. Like, Michigan State fans are not going to look back on that and be like, man, that was just an all-time game. Like, we're just fortunate to be a part of it. Like, you're never going to have that feeling. And that's how it would have been for K-State. And so Desi Sills, if there's one man that can recover from getting fouled out in a game like that, I think it's Desi Sills. I think he's got enough of a positive attitude to get that thing flipped around, and he's probably already saying crazy fun things into somebody's camera right now in the locker room.
And you know what? I'll spin zone it. Super positive news for K-State. They've got an incredibly fresh body on Saturday to guard either Santiago Vescovi
Great point.
Or the dudes from Florida Atlantic. I'm not super familiar with names. I'm sorry.
The Owls.
Whoops. But
I'm not anticipating seeing Florida Atlantic on Saturday. I'll just say that. Like,
and if it is Tennessee, you're going to need fresh bodies. So I will say it's good that you got a Cam Carter game in the Sweet 16, and the Elite Eight can be a Desi Sills game. Like, that's actually a positive.
It's true. Desi Sills only plays 19 minutes tonight, which is nuts. And then Tennessee, very fortunate that the three officials that were in this game don't have the game after it, because I'm not sure Tennessee would have any players left eligible to play in the game. There'd be a lot of guys fouling out there based off their style of play and the way that the game got officiated. Some of the other things to kind of dive into here and digest from the game. K-State assisted on 68% of their made shots tonight. Their magic number all year has been 63%. Anything higher than 63%, they were 21-0 entering tonight. They're now 22-0 at that number. So if they're finding guys and they finish, K-State's winning the basketball game. And then ultimately, I think another thing that is impressive to me is just the fact that, I look up and down the box score, and what's kind of crazy here is, number one, there were only 10 total fast break points in this game, 8-2. For a game that was played at such a high level, so many possessions, so high scoring, there were only 10 fast break points total. K-State wins that 8-2, and the Wildcats win the points in the paint battle 44-36. That's another sneaky thing that K-State's been really good at lately, even against teams that should be better inside. But because K-State's so good with Noel or Johnson finishing in the lane and doing some of that, and then whenever you get Carter and Gasson doing it tonight, you get a little bit of a boost there, because I think they were tied with Kentucky in points in the paint on Sunday. So all in all, great game for K-State, and things work out in a really, really good way for them. And now they get to kind of sit around and wait to see who they play tonight, Tennessee or Florida Atlantic. Certainly makes things go a lot better for the rest of the night and tomorrow when you win the game as opposed to losing it. So those are some instant thoughts there. What else kind of stands out to you about the game that we haven't dug into yet?
I would just say I was incredibly surprised, but also it made sense that a guy like Jerome Tang in an ATO situation, and I would bet it wasn't the first option to get to toss the ball to Ish Masood for a fadeaway mid-range jumper, basically with the game on the line. Because I don't think if it was a 1-point game, K-State was getting a stop. I just I don't know if that logic makes sense, but
No, it does. The way that game played out, it certainly makes sense to me.
Up one, I don't think you could trust because they were just going to drive to the rim and either get a foul on Cam Carter or score over Marquise Noel. But up 3, you force them to make a 3 or take a 3. And it was hectic stuff. But I thought the trust that they put in to Ish Masood to do that, and I guess I would just say the trust that they have in him and the confidence that he has because of it allowed him to just confidently pull. Because I think the bad version of Ish Masood this season has been the guy who misses the threes because he either pump fakes and misses, or he just doesn't catch ready to shoot. He caught ready to shoot, and he has caught the ball ready to shoot since the Kentucky game. And since that last big shot in the Kentucky game. And man, he was special. And then the perimeter defense on the last possession, bravo. Just scramble drill 101 to figure things out there.
Yeah. Here, we'll take a look right here at the Keontae Johnson lob play. I mean, the fact that K-State has been able to execute this in the moments that they have this year, obviously there's all varieties to each of them, but nonetheless, they are lobs that Keontae Johnson has finished to either win the game or do something major in a moment like this. So a minute to go, tied game, and K-State comes down the floor. And the other impressive thing out of this is not out of a timeout where they're inbounding it on the sideline right there, half court type of deal. This is them coming down the floor and still getting something like this. All the other games this year where they were able to do something like this to finish it, whether it was against Oklahoma State to seal the deal, to beat KU, they did it against Baylor as well to finish things off. There may have been another game or two that were mixed in there that they were able to finish, but they were able to do this just in real time coming down the floor. And again, here's what you talked about. You have Michigan State, you should know that Keontae Johnson is going to cut to the basket there, or that's a possibility. You're up far too high, and takes a little glance at Keontae, but it's not enough to be able to catch up there. And that's one of those deals, that's to the max of what Michigan State had killed him tonight, was not paying enough attention or being close enough. But that's kind of what Michigan State did all evening long, was just not be ready in those moments. And K-State exploited it. And K-State has proven they're not a team that you can not pay attention to that kind of stuff with, because they have a point guard that is smart enough to make the plays that are necessary. And then they have the guys that can finish it, especially if David Gasson and Cam Carter and Naquan Tomlin are on top of their game tonight. Because we know for the most part, Keontae Johnson will finish. The fact that they had other guys that were able to finish, that's what's the most impressive part.
Yeah. I mean, it was the back cuts were so I can say horrible defense by Michigan State, horrible defensive principles of just defensive instincts to just be ball watching with Noel dribbling at the top of the key the entire night. But it also is just as bad basketball as it is for Michigan State. It's just really good basketball by K-State. And it goes back all the way to the shot quality article that I wrote in January. And the one thing that Simon was saying when we were going through the K-State data is he's like, the one thing that makes them elite is the fact that they're the number one team in the country in cuts. And it makes sense because you look at Marquise Noel's offensive game, and I know tonight even tonight he's 7 for 18 shooting the ball. He's 2 for 6 from 3. He's not the most efficient shooter of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Keontae goes 10 for 18. I know that, but he's 1 of 4 from 3.
Yeah.
And when he misses, he's taking mid-range jumpers for the most part. But everybody else gets their offense from layups. Gasson gets it on layups. Sills gets it on layups. I know he hit a 3 tonight. Naquan, he could have. He missed a couple bunnies. He missed a dunk. missed a dunk on a between the legs pass.
I mean, there were two major moments in this game for K-State where it felt like they could have extended it out to where it may have been too much for Michigan State. It was the missed dunk by Naquan that probably just lay it in, make sure you get it there. And then the other big one in the game, and this is the one that really stings, Keontae Johnson missed the front end of a 1-and-1 that if he makes both, puts K-State up 8 or 10, something along those lines. I think it was 8. He misses it, and Michigan State immediately goes down the floor and drills a 3. Like, there were still moments that were very like K-State and some of the flaws that we've seen this year, but that's the same thing in the Montana State and Kentucky game. I think the most encouraging thing is we're seeing those at far fewer moments now for K-State, and now they've got other guys that are chipping in to step up and kind of carry them when there is an error or a mistake like that.
Yeah, I think I need to go back through the game log of the play sheet, but I think as soon as it got tied, so Naquan misses the dunk on the between the legs pass at 49-41, and then the game ended up tied at, I believe it was 54 apiece. And from that point on, I don't think it ever got to a more than 4-point game. It was just so much of like punch, counter punch between the two teams. And the fact that K-State didn't back down, and the fact that K-State never allowed one of those kill shots because they have been susceptible to those 10 runs, it really kept them in this thing. And we talked about it extensively on the podcast yesterday that Michigan State did not have the dudes to force turnovers on K-State. They had 2 steals the entire night and 5 total turnovers for K-State. And you know what was incredibly impressive? For as much ball screen offense as K-State ran and as much cutting as K-State did, they never had a cutter run into a charge. There were 0 charges in this game. And that to me is the sign of guys being on balance, which is like a Villanova special. Like Villanova doesn't run into charges because all of their guys play off of 2 feet. All of their guys make great cuts. They play fundamentally sound basketball. And it was flashy stuff for K-State and it looked awesome, but it was also incredibly composed. And because of that, they limited turnovers. Which is why it would be fascinating if they get Tennessee on Saturday, because Tennessee is going to punch you in your mouth. They're going to shove you down onto the ground, and they're just going to dare refs to call fouls. So if K-State can do that, and Marquise is on a bum ankle dealing with all that physicality, and that's a whole nother discussion. But it goes without saying, K-State fans should root for Florida Atlantic tonight because Tennessee is a bad matchup.
Yeah, the right now Tennessee's up 13-8, 7 minutes into the game. I've seen Florida Atlantic do some kind of stupid things, so I guess we'll see how it ends up going. And yeah, I mean Tennessee offensively they aren't scary right now. Obviously Ziegler's done for the year, so that helps. But they still have guys that are making plays. Like I didn't think they'd be able to get past Duke, and they found a way. And that was the result of like they got a crew in that game that let Tennessee play a lot like what West Virginia does, except Tennessee's got much better players and is just a better team as a whole than West Virginia. So they were just going to be physical, do a ton of aggressive things, and say, hey, I'm going to challenge you to call it here. Ideally for K-State, you get that same crew that just officiated tonight's game, and they're just ripping fouls off left and right. But the scary numbers for Tennessee, if you're K-State, they're number 1 in adjusted efficiency on defense, according to KenPom. So they're the top defensive team in the country, according to KenPom. And the thing that we've been tracking the last 2 games, Kentucky and Michigan State, both terrible at forcing turnovers. Tennessee forces turnovers on 22% of their possessions. That's 21st in the country. The way that things work out, or excuse me, that's 22% of their possessions. So they're 21st in the country in the way that works out. And then their steal percentage is 16th in the country. So they're really good. And that's something that you're going to have to watch out for if you're K-State. Now, the one thing to kind of take notice of if you're K-State, it's a lot of ISO ball for Tennessee offensively. They are, at times they can be that way. and I think even more so right now, like it's a lot of guys that just have to kind of go to work. And we've seen that tonight so far against Florida Atlantic. They've just had a guy grab the ball and take it. So it'll be fascinating to watch how they finish out against Florida Atlantic here. They're already up 16-8, about to make it 17-8. So it'll be K-State, Tennessee, and right now the way it's shaping up, Tennessee's going to have a pretty ho-hum route there. They're not going to have to play 45 minutes of hardcore basketball tonight, and that favors them. And they also don't have their best player with a bum ankle that has to sit now for X amount of hours.
Yeah. I think tonight was just an overwhelming. If people didn't watch the K-State Kentucky game nationally on Sunday, and I know that most of the casual people in college basketball probably did just because it was Kentucky, tonight should have been even more evidence of just like, this is by far the most likable K-State team that there has been in a long time.
Yeah, that's true.
They are such a likable group.
Yep. No, that is very, very, very true. I think one of the other things that I want to talk about this just because he was incredible tonight. We talked about the bucket he made to put K-State up 3, but Ish Massoud, the fact that he now in back-to-back games has hit major threes for them, and he hit another just extremely deep one tonight for K-State. And it seems like every time he's hit a 3 this year in a game, it's been like, hey, we need this bucket right now. And obviously the one that put them up 3, that was not, it wasn't a 3, but it was still a big bucket. He was phenomenal tonight. And I think the other thing that is impressive is that him and Naquan Tomlin and David Gasson have also been able to do enough defensively. I know K-State struggled defensively tonight. There were times where they just couldn't stop Michigan State from getting inside. But late in the game, David Gasson had a really good possession defensively to force a stop and force Michigan State to pull up. Shot clock was winding down. They left it short, like around the free throw line. And then K-State got the rebound. I think they were only up 1 at that point. So David Gasson and all these other ancillary pieces for K-State, they've stepped up. And it may be that it's kind of building a house of cards for K-State, and it could all come tumbling down just as easy on Saturday against Tennessee. But I would much rather see a team right now that is doing what K-State is, where everybody is playing their best basketball of the season right now. And I don't really think that there's a doubt about that based off what we've seen the last 2 games against Kentucky and Michigan State.
Yeah. I didn't realize that Gasson, Carter, and Tomlin were all 1 foul away from fouling out.
Yeah.
Like that game goes to double OT. K-State probably falls apart.
I jokingly said to some guys that Nate Aubrey might be finishing this game on the floor. But it wasn't that much of a stretch to suggest that could be something that happened. Because, yeah, it was very, very, very tough for K-State in that department tonight. And, like, I just thought in general, the way that this game played out, like, the refs officiated it to a point to where nobody could play defense, and that's why we saw the score be what it was. Like, guys were getting decent looks from 3 that they could knock down because you can't get too tight or they're going to call you for a bump or that guy's going by you, or guys are going to go by you and finish in the lane, and you don't want to get a foul there. Desi Sills, like that man, I think at least 3 of the 5 fouls he had tonight, 2 of them, I don't even think he touched the guy that ended up drawing the foul. And they just seemed a little weak the way that they ended up playing out. So K-State is fortunate there because Michigan State, they end up committing 8 less fouls in the game than K-State, and they only had 2 guys end up getting to 4 fouls. Nobody else even got to 3 for them. And Hauser was the really only significant player to be in foul trouble for Michigan State. But even in that second half, his effectiveness had kind of waned in the game. So just a great performance by K-State. Maybe there is a little bit of luck involved there, but not to the extent that Tom Izzo is suggesting, to where luck decided the game. And also, like, Tommy Boy's got to admit that his team was a little bit lucky at times as well, because there were a lot of moments where you could have looked at how everything had played out and said, hey, you're very fortunate to be going to overtime with this game, Tom. Now that you've gotten your 9th life as a Cat, like, go out there and win it. And he and his team weren't able to win it. So that's how I see it. And if you're going to, after a game like that, try and demean what K-State accomplished, I just shut the hell up and go home, Tom. Enjoy the couch.
Yeah, they were better than I thought they were going to be. I thought K-State had the advantages. They did have the advantages, but Michigan State made tough shots. Tyson Walker hit some pull-up threes. AJ Hogard was tough tonight. Offensively, he was bad defensively. Just straight up. And I think Jaden Akins was really good, but Jaden Akins also, I mean, it didn't end up working. It didn't end up mattering because Desi Sills fouled out anyways. But like Jaden Akins allowed Desi to hang around in the first half for a lot longer than he should have, because there were a couple times where the whistle was getting pretty soft and refs were just begging to call stuff. And Akins got Desi one-on-one and just passed the ball away each time. And I don't know. I really like his game, but I don't know. It just felt like early on, it looked like K-State was in disarray on the defensive glass.
Yeah.
And it was going to be one of those nights where it's like, guys, who's going to be the rebounder tonight? And you look at the end of the night, nobody had more than 7 boards for K-State. And I know, shout out Cam Carter for getting 6 of them. He had some really dumb fouls. Notably the tip-in foul, I think it was on Malik Hall, 82-80.
Yeah.
And then the free throw was missed, so it didn't end up mattering, but like just a dumb foul.
Yes.
But he also had 3 steals and 6 rebounds. So, and he didn't turn the ball over offensively. So,
yeah.
Overall, really good game for him.
Couple of stats from the chat, so I appreciate the fact checkers in there right now. K-State has only lost 1 time this season when Ish Massoud has scored 10+ points, and that was the game at Iowa State. So I'd have to go and look to see how many times Ish has been in double figures this year. But more so than him being in double figures, like I would like to know how many times when he hits 2 or more threes in a game, K-State has won. Because if he hits a big one, like it seems like K-State's going to win it, and now maybe that's why they're big ones. But he's been really good in some big time games when they needed him, even when it's not scoring. Like we're gonna always have the story from the KU game where Tang talks about Shark Week and he didn't dive, but then he dove on the floor and made that winning play. Ish Massoud has been in double figures. That was the 5th game now this year that he's been in double figures. First double-digit scoring game for Ish since the loss at Iowa State. Other games were the win against Texas Tech, the win at Baylor, and then the opening win against UTRGV this year. And then when it comes down to Ish, when he makes more than 1 3 in a game, so 2 or more,
they're 6-3.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's come through for him in moments, and Cam Carter might be the guy that his numbers might be more indicative of a winning performance or not, because he came through tonight. And we talked about kind of how you saw this game playing out and said, hey, K-State's due for a just shoot the lights out. No one's beating you tonight performance. And you were still right. Like K-State did not lose that game, and they shot the ball worthy enough of not losing that game. I went on a podcast yesterday with a Michigan State guy, and number one, he asked me, he's like, hey, who's a guy that just like out of nowhere could have a good game for K-State? He's like, that just kind of always happens to Michigan State. And the first 2 games against USC and Marquette, they had like dudes that aren't very special go off. I said, I'm not going to include Desi Sills in this because like he's probably their 3rd best player and he's done whatever. And I was like, Ish Massoud maybe like could hit some shots. I said, but Cam Carter is the guy that normally shots are not going to fall for him from the outside. But like, that's a dude that if he has a decent game, you're probably going to be pulling your hair out as a Michigan State fan. And I think the second he hit that first 3, I was like, oh baby, this is what we were looking for Cam Carter tonight. And the other thing I told him, I said, now this is something that like won't show up statistically for K-State because the Big 12 is not a great shooting league and all this. But I said to him, I was like, I think K-State has defended the 3-point line horribly this year. Like eye test wise, I look at it and I say they're not very good. Like Michigan State could shoot them to death. And Michigan State certainly tried, but I didn't account for the fact that K-State was going to be able to match them in every area. So K-State did some things that would typically lead to them losing a game, but they did the right things that helped kind of propel them to a victory, like not turning the ball over and just having Marquise Noel and Keontae Johnson, because that kind of helps too.
And that's where I would be like, if I was Tom Izzo, and I'm gonna complain about like, oh, some of the big plays they made weren't big plays, they were lucky. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that because you know what? Lob dunks on baseline cuts late in the game are not lucky. But I would say, guys, if I know the media members around Michigan State, and I'm sure there are some lifers, there's some guys who have been around the team for a while, I'd be like, fellas, if I told you going into this game that Cam Carter was going to go 5 for 6 and Ish Massoud was going to go 5 for 8, if I told you those two dudes were going to combine to go 10 for 14 and they were going to have 27 points, you would have told me we got routed and we lost by 5.
Yeah.
So that would be the thing that I would be pulling my hair out at night, and I would legitimately spend nothing the entire time traveling back to East Lansing thinking like, are you kidding me? Like the catch and shoot 3 from Cam Carter down 70-67 to tie it at 70s was the play where I was like, okay, K-State's winning this game. Like if that shot is going, if that shot's going. And then the other one was Noel's baseball pass right into the shooting pocket, cross court to Ish.
That was
like, I mean, if he's going to set up dudes for layups, okay. But if he's putting it right in the shooting pocket for Ish, you just got to be like, guys, this is one of those stupid nights. And you know what? Over time, it has all worked out for Izzo. He's probably gotten the better end of these types of things more often than not.
I think if I remember the stat right, that's only Izzo's second ever loss in a Sweet 16 game. Like if he makes it to the Sweet 16, he is winning that game. So like you're right. Things have worked out for the man. Like he's Mr. March. He's Mr. March. He's done all that. Like he's gotten to go to plenty of Final Fours, and he's kind of screwed up his opportunity. I said that to you guys at one point. I was like, that man has had enough chances to make something happen in the Final Four. This is not his night. This is not his moment. This belongs to K-State. That's why they need this thing, and they were able to get it done.
Here's the thing. If you're a K-State fan, and I know that I like to rag on him, John Calipari, and all this kind of stuff, and you're ragging on Izzo a little bit and being like, I've never been an Izzo guy. I've never been a Cal guy. Yeah. I hate the show up every November and be like, oh, we're just kids. We're just kids. Like you recruited them. You wanted this young team. Whatever. Jerome Tang is 3-0 in the NCAA tournament, and 2 of the wins are against John Calipari and Tom Izzo. So that should get him. And guess what? That he's 1 win away from tying the first-year head coach record for wins at K-State, 27.
Yeah, there you go. Yes, very, very. Yeah, it's good to think about that. Real quick, couple of things, and then I want to shift gears for a second. Then we'll be done for the night. This is the full Tom Izzo quote that he said on CBS or on TBS after the game to Allie LaForce. He said, "Give them credit. They banked in 2 shot clock threes. They made some big plays, but some of those big plays weren't big plays. They were lucky plays." Even better than that Izzo quote, where I'm sure if we watch the full interview, he would be even more salty, is the first reply to the man that tweeted out, Kyle Boone, a writer for CBS Sports. The first reply is from a Kentucky fan who says, "It's true, though. They made 3 straight contested 30-foot threes against Kentucky. They are a very lucky team." So it's good to know that Michigan State and Kentucky, both sides are just going to be fired up and pissed that they lost to the very lucky Wildcats, because I've never known a team that's won back-to-back games on luck. You can win 1 game on luck, but luck doesn't typically extend for a 5-day period.
And luck is not working you, just absolutely working you in the pick and roll all night long. That was not lucky. That was just Marquise Noel being awesome.
Yep. Here, let's show one of those lucky / awesome plays, depending on who you are. This is a look right here. If you're watching on the YouTube page, Marquise Noel coming down the floor and just a thing of beauty right here as it just turns into essentially a scramble drill. And this is not too long after he's come in with the bum ankle. Like this might be his first or second offensive possession back on the floor after he had to leave the game with the ankle sprain. He tried getting it to Tomlin, who lost it, and there were still about 3 seconds on the clock, but he just heaved it up
traveled.
there, got it to
Traveled.
go. Yeah, I mean, hey, walks, whatever you want to call them. I wouldn't worry too much about it if you're K-State. So a beautiful thing to look at there. One other thing that I wanted to bring up now here, a question from Ryan on the YouTube in the chat. He wanted to know about what we think of what it means for K-State and how it bodes for them to play in a different type of game against Tennessee, because that's likely what we're looking at. We're looking at one of those uglier style type games, as opposed to, even though they didn't make shots against Kentucky, that game still played at kind of a normal pace. It didn't feel like they had to do anything uncharacteristic to the way they kind of like to play. Now against Tennessee, who's your likely Elite Eight opponent, it's going to be a very physical game.
Atlantic game into existence.
Me?
Yeah.
No, I don't believe it, but I just want to cover my bases. I don't want to be the idiot that, we've talked 20 minutes about how they're playing Tennessee, and then it's irrelevant when somebody's listening tomorrow and they're like, Florida Atlantic had a hell of a comeback and they won the game last night. Like, I just want to make sure I'm covered there. I don't want anybody coming after me for that. So where do you stand on what it might mean for K-State having to kind of switch up stylistically and take on Tennessee?
I think they'll be fine. I mean, it's not like K-State has been a team that can't win a game if it's ugly. They've won a couple of the ugly games. I mean, they beat Texas Tech at home. That was not a super great game.
Oklahoma State at home was the same
Oklahoma
way.
State and Oklahoma both at home were not. I mean, I know Oklahoma had ended up turning into a little bit of a track meet late, but like that was a disgusting basketball game in the first half of that night. Yeah. They'll be perfectly fine. I think that the bigger thing is just the wear and tear against a physical team, and the other thing is just that who referees the game and how involved they want to be will matter. If they don't want to be a storyline, they might become a storyline for how little they want to be a storyline if they're not blowing the whistle. Because nobody does it better. Like, there's always one team in college hoops that just fouls on every possession and does you can't call a foul on every possession strategy.
West Virginia.
Used to be West Virginia. Used to be the Press Virginia boys. Now it's Tennessee.
Yeah.
It's a disgusting basketball style to watch. But the counterpoint to that is, like, as much as scary as you might be, or as scared as you might be for Tennessee's defensive profile, I would also say, in a 6-game stretch of the NCAA tournament, or just a 4-game stretch to win a regional, at some point Tennessee is due. Like, I keep doing these, somebody's due for this, and like K-State was.
It sounds crazy, but that's just sports, man. That's how sports works.
Water eventually finds its level, and Tennessee is due for a just like dud offensive game. I specifically remember them, and it could be tonight. Like, they could go cold here in the second half at some point, but you could get one of those Tennessee games where they go 2 for 20 from 3.
Yeah, they're 3 of 7 right now. 3:17 left to play in the first half. They're up 6, but getting ready to go to the line. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. I think K-State can handle it, and honestly, I think it helps K-State that. I won't say this game looks physical because of all the fouls that got called in it. And I thought that a lot of the guys for K-State kind of matched what they needed to match very well. But I will say it benefits K-State that they already played Kentucky, who it wasn't everybody on Kentucky was as physical as Tennessee. But the fact that K-State had guys that already had to go test themselves against Oscar Tshiebwe, I think is a benefit to them and helping them prepare for Tennessee. Because if David Gasson's first test of this tournament against an overly physical team was Tennessee, that would be scary. But I just saw him go toe-to-toe with Tshiebwe and not be scared, not back down, and probably play the toughest basketball he had played all season. Naquan Tomlin is playing better, tougher, stronger, finishing around the rim, starting to be a little bit smarter on when to take it. Like, there are just a lot of things that are working out for K-State right now that I'm not overly concerned about Tennessee. The only thing that I could see being an issue, now K-State didn't get to the line a lot tonight, but I don't anticipate them to have certain guys finish around the rim like they did today. K-State was 21 of 29 finishing at the basket today, and a lot of those came from like Cam Carter, David Gasson, like some guys that just you don't normally expect it from. Now, given you were without Desi Sills. So my only concern would be against Tennessee is that K-State's not able to get enough calls inside, like on drives that probably there was a foul, and normally they'd go to the line to shoot. And that kind of takes away their driving ability, or it scares Marquise Noel away from doing it. He was kind of shy in going to the rim tonight at certain times when he probably should have taken it, and he really didn't get a ton of calls there tonight. So maybe it benefits that they had to adjust a little bit with that style. But that would be my main concern with Tennessee, is that they're not getting the calls inside early. They quit taking it down there, and they ultimately have to resort to a game that is just praying to God that everybody hits shots like they did tonight against Michigan State. And I'm just not going to count on Ish Massoud, Cam Carter, Desi Sills, David Gasson, that quadruplet of guys hitting a three in the game. I just don't see it happening. So I just think K-State, and I don't think they will be because they're ready for this and everything, just go in there, don't play scared, stand tall with them, and at the end of the day, you're the better team than Tennessee. And that is something that has been said a lot for K-State the last couple of trips to the Elite Eight. They've been facing teams that they are better than. K-State has worn the white jerseys for the 3 Elite Eights that they've been in my lifetime, and the first 2 did not go their way. But it's about damn time that something does go their way. It's been 59 years since K-State was in a Final Four, and I said if K-State made it to this point, I was just doing it because it felt like we needed to go off vibes with our picks here in the NCAA tournament. So I'm going to do this for the Cats. I think it's just one of those magical games where K-State comes out, and with 10 minutes left to play in the first half, you go, this team's going to the Final Four. I'm taking the Cats by 17 against Tennessee on Saturday. I said I'm going to do it. I may adjust that when I write it down for the pace and tempo of the game to where, like some of those games with Texas Tech back in 2019, I think K-State won the game in Manhattan. It's 57-49 or something like that. So it's like K-State only won by 8, but for the way the game played out, that was like they won by 25. So I may adjust the total there.
It's so hard to beat Tennessee by 17.
Yeah, but the equivalent of 17 is what I'm taking K-State by. So I really do think that they'll get it done. I do have my FanDuel ticket on K-State to win the East region. So we'll see how that goes and plays out.
I'm unbelievably upset that as I drove from Manhattan back to Overland Park on senior night, I texted you and Alec, and I said K-State is plus 1,800 to make a Final Four.
Yeah.
And I said, mathematically, that does not make sense. They're going to have a game where they're going to be a heavy favorite in the first game. And then even if you just think the next 3 games are all toss-ups, from a gambling perspective, that's like a plus 600 expected value. If you're going 3 parlays of toss-up outcomes, or 3 outcomes in a parlay of toss-ups, and I didn't pull the trigger on it, and it upsets me to this day. But I will say, at the same time, I picked K-State in my bracket to go to the Final Four. I wrote that they were a national title contender, and I know that it's a lot easier to say that when you're not a person who has been beaten and barren by failures in the past, and you're not in denial mode that things are actually good, which I think some K-State fans on our board were. And they just didn't want to hear someone being overly positive.
You and I took a lot of heat for that take.
you in particular. Because we all know you were the shadow ghost writer.
There.
Putting it under my name. But this was what we were talking about. And so far you've gotten great coaching from Tang. You've gotten star performances. You've probably got one of the 5 best, and that's being generous. Generous. One of the 5 best NCAA tournament performances ever tonight from Marquise Noel. And through 3 tournament games, he has 9 more assists than anyone has ever gotten in the first 3 tournament games of a tournament. So he's been special. This is the exact recipe for them to go to the Final Four, and they don't have to play Zach Edey, and they don't have to play. So they don't have to play the Big Ten Player of the Year. They didn't have to play the Big East Player of the Year. Tyler Kolek wasn't there. I think some weird things could happen tomorrow night in Louisville.
Yeah.
Maybe San Diego State bucks it up a little bit.
Go Aztecs.
And sometimes it's not just about how well you play. Sometimes it's about the route that you get. And I wouldn't say Kentucky and Michigan State is easy, but if you told me that K-State, if you told me on that senior night, K-State was going to get a game against Tennessee to go to the Final Four, you would take that in an instant.
Yes, absolutely.
And if you said it was going to be Florida Atlantic as well, you would have taken that in an instant as well.
Yeah.
So they are in a great spot. This is my last question for you is if you go negative Nelly and you say K-State loses on Saturday, this is still a what top, if you play this season 100 times, this is what, a top 3 percentile outcome?
Oh, for sure. I mean, yeah, I don't know that there is like, because you're playing a team that you could beat on Saturday. Like if you run the simulation, however many million times, it would say, okay, you could beat Tennessee. Like that could happen. And so that would be the case. But I think this is like the second best case scenario, win or lose on Saturday. Because at the end of the day, I mean, I don't know. I have a really tough time seeing that this team that's really just built around 2 guys, and then everybody else, you're just crossing your fingers that they're going to step up. I have a tough time seeing that team win a national championship. And depending on who's on the other side, like if it's Alabama, I mean, I will be more than excited to be in Houston for that and everything, but I'm more than prepared to watch my alma mater, the school that I went to, the school that I grew up loving and all that. I'm more than prepared to watch them get killed by the style of basketball that I love more than anything. Just chucking it up, running down there, passing the ball, pass out of open layups for dynamite threes. Like I'm prepared for it. So yeah, I think it's probably the second best outcome that's possible there for K-State. Other thing, and just so you don't feel bad, like my Final Four ticket on K-State, that was placed like 2 days ago. Damn. So that it's less value, but they had the third best odds in this region.
They were plus 900. They were plus 900 on Sunday before they played Kentucky, and I didn't place that. And I feel stupid about that to this day as well. Like I don't know why I don't listen to myself. I talk myself through all these basketball scenarios, and I'm like, X's and O's wise, it makes plenty of sense for K-State. And then I let K-Staters be like, we couldn't possibly get to this spot. Like, it's too good to be true. And then I just don't do it. And sometimes you just got to shoot from the hip. Sometimes you just got to pull the trigger.
We've got news right now. Somebody that Marquise Noel was talking to in the stands during this Tennessee-Florida Atlantic game was beefing with security. So Madison Square Garden security having another banner night.
Team stolen
for them. Yeah, I also, nobody knows this one either. I had 50 on K-State money line tonight as well. So
I had a lot on that as well.
Yeah, I knew you had that one because you made a comment about how you had quite a bit going there. So we were confident in the Cats. I never lost faith there for a minute in that game.
If there's one thing EMA Online knows, it's we know ball.
We know ball. We absolutely know ball. We'll stay locked into Tennessee, Florida Atlantic, as I'm sure everybody else will, and see how that goes. And then we'll be ready tomorrow. Alex shouldn't have anything going on, so we'll just have him hop on, and he and I will do a full preview for everything that takes place. I guess if Gabe is available, you're always invited.
I will not be available. Okay. I will be working, and then I will be departing to go downtown to watch Sir Jabari Rice beat Sean Miller.
I bet Alec would trade places with you in a heartbeat. You get to go to New York, and he gets to come back to Kansas City just to watch Sir Jabari. Yeah. We'll see how it ends up going down. But Tennessee, I'm assuming that's who K-State ends up facing in the Elite Eight. Just nice to keep the season going for another day for K-State. I thought about that today. Like I took myself out of just, obviously I went to K-State. I'm not going to be shy about cheering for my alma mater. I'm going to be professional when I need to be professional about it. But I'm also not just going to be, this guy that throws all that away, because that's silly. That's not what college sports is about. But I thought to myself, even just from a standpoint of covering basketball in any way this year, I'm not ready to quit caring about college basketball yet. And K-State winning means that we get to care for at least another game. And hopefully they can do something to where we get to care about them for another week. And they're playing next Saturday down in Houston. So that is what we all have to look forward to. The Cats in the Elite Eight, third time since 2010 that they are going there. They are looking for their first Final Four appearance in a long, long, long time. So we will see if they are able to get over the hump and do it. That'll do it for Gabe and I. If you're not signed up for Email Online, go do it right now, because you'll want to read the awesome story that Alec did today with Marcus Noel, Marquise's brother, and also Marquise's father. They went around all these different locations in New York, and you got the full life story of Marquise Noel, not just kind of like, oh, yep, I transferred, I ended up in Manhattan, this has been a great year. It's the real deal, how Marquise Noel, chances of not making it at birth, different instances in his youth that were really scary situations or dicey moments for the Noel family, and how Marquise Noel ended up in Manhattan, Kansas, and I think is going to win the Cousy Award. I think he ends up being the top point guard in the country. And if he doesn't win the award, I don't know that he needs to win the award to showcase that he is, because he's doing it in this NCAA tournament. It's a great story. You can only read it at Email Online in that situation, and get signed up less than $10 a month to do that. Also, plenty of other post-game coverage, player grades from Gabe. Alex going to have tons of great stuff from Madison Square Garden. Then we get to do it all again on Saturday. So that'll do it for Gabe and I. We are out. Thanks for watching on the Email Online YouTube page. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll be back. We'll do the same thing on Saturday, win or lose for the Wildcats, to wrap things up after hopefully a win over Tennessee. We'll make it a lot easier on myself.
I will be here for Saturday.
Okay.
I am telling you this. There will be nets around Marquise Noel's neck.
Okay. That's what I like to hear. I was about to say something that tied it back into that story that Alec wrote, but I couldn't tell if it was like poetic or if it was just kind of like not right. So
probably not.
I'm not gonna say that on here. I'm gonna save myself being canceled on the eve of K-State's Elite Eight performance. So because if they go to Houston, I want to be there. I don't want to be canceled and turn into like Louis C.K. or something. So yes. Although what I was going to say had nothing to do with what he did. So I'm just going to shut up now, because I'm talking, and this is what they talk about, where like radio's a tough job. You're on the air for a long time. You say a lot of things, and sometimes you don't mean what you say, but you're still going to say something stupid, and you're going to get booted off the air at some point. I'm about to boot myself off the air, so I better just end the show right there. So Gabe and I are out. Check out Email Online, and we'll be back Saturday, win or lose.